It started with a single text message, a message that shattered everything he thought he knew about the woman he loved. A devoted wife by day, but by night, she lived a dark, twisted double life. And when her secret was finally exposed, it left behind a trail of blood, deception, and an unsolved murder that still haunts investigators to this day. If you enjoy deep dives into shocking true crime stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring you more gripping cases just like this one. James Holloway thought he had it all. A loving wife, a beautiful home, and a seemingly perfect life. His wife, Emily, was a picture of kindness, a school teacher adored by his students, and deeply involved in charity work. But James had no idea that Emily was hiding a secret so dark, so twisted, that it would send shockwaves through the entire town. On October 14th, 2019, Emily Holloway left home for what James assumed was another late-night volunteer event. But she never came back. At first, James wasn't worried. Maybe she had gone out with friends or stayed late at work. But as the hours stretched into the next morning and Emily's phone went straight to voicemail, unease turned to dread. Then came the text message. "Don't look for me. I'm sorry." James was stunned. This wasn't like Emily. She wasn't the kind of person to just disappear. He tried calling again and again, but there was nothing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Desperate, he reported her missing, and that's when the nightmare truly began. Police initially treated Emily's disappearance as a voluntary one. A woman in her mid-30s leaving home wasn't unheard of, but James knew something was wrong. Then, a week later, a jogger stumbled upon something horrifying in the woods, Emily's car, abandoned and covered in blood. But there was no sign of Emily, and things were about to get much worse. As detectives dug deeper into Emily's past, they uncovered a side of her life that no one had ever imagined. A hidden world of deceit, betrayal, and something far more sinister. Emily had been leading a double life, one that would soon reveal a chilling truth. And just when police thought they had uncovered the darkest part of Emily's secret, they found something else. Something that would change the entire investigation. A second victim, and a cryptic note left at the scene. The discovery of a second victim turned the entire investigation upside down. The body was found only a few miles from where Emily Holloway's bloodstained car had been abandoned. But the shocking part? The victim wasn't a stranger. It was a man named Daniel Reeves, a private investigator. And inside his wallet, police found a cryptic note. "She knows." Who was she? Was the note referring to Emily? If so, what did she know? And why would a private investigator end up dead just days after Emily's disappearance? Detectives knew they had to dig deeper, and what they found next made their blood run cold. James Holloway had always believed his wife was an open book, but as detectives traced Emily's steps, they found a side of her life he had never seen. Bank records showed large cash withdrawals over the past year, amounts James couldn't explain. Even stranger, she had a second phone, one that James never knew existed. And when police cracked into it, they found messages to a number listed under M. Message: "It's done. He won't find out. We need to move fast." Who was M? And what was done? The messages painted a picture of a woman who wasn't just leading a double life. She was entangled in something dangerous. But before police could track him down, another clue emerged, one hidden inside Emily's car. As forensics combed through Emily's abandoned vehicle, they found something bizarre tucked beneath the driver's seat, a key. But it wasn't just any key. It belonged to a storage unit on the outskirts of town. Police wasted no time getting a warrant, and when they pried open the metal door, the contents inside sent chills down their spines. Inside the storage unit was a collection of items that made no sense for a schoolteacher to own. Stacks of cash, burner phones, and most disturbingly, a bloodstained shirt. But the real shock came when they found a lockbox, and inside it, a set of photographs. The pictures showed Emily, but not in the way James had ever seen her. In some, she was sitting with dangerous-looking men in a dimly lit bar. In others, she was standing outside a building known to be a front for illegal activity. But one photo stood out: Emily, sitting across from Daniel Reeves, the private investigator who had just been found dead. And scrawled on the back of the picture, 3 words. He found me. Who was after Emily? And what had Daniel Reeves uncovered before his murder? Police knew they were dealing with something much larger than a simple missing person case. As police continued piecing together the puzzle, they made another startling discovery. Emily had been married before, but her first husband, Mark Evans, had mysteriously vanished years ago. His case was never solved. But now, detectives had to ask the unthinkable. Could Emily have been involved? And was a disappearance connected to whatever had happened to Mark? Mark's sister, Lauren Evans, had long suspected foul play in her brother's disappearance, but with no body and no evidence, the case went cold. Now, with Emily missing and new evidence surfacing, Lauren reached out to police with a chilling statement. Emily isn't who you think she is. I tried to warn Mark, but he didn't listen. Meanwhile, police were closing in on the mysterious M from Emily's hidden messages. Phone records trace a number to a burner cell, but the last ping placed it near a motel on the outskirts of town. Detectives rushed to the scene, hoping for answers, but what they found inside room 214 only deepened the mystery. The walls of room 214 told a story more terrifying than anything investigators had imagined. Dozens of newspaper clippings, all detailing disappearances and murders spanning nearly 15 years, were taped in a chaotic pattern. But one stood out. A faded article from 2012 about Mark Evans, Emily Holloway's first husband, who had mysteriously vanished without a trace. Beneath it, scrawled in deep red ink, were the words, "She's next." The question that haunted detectives was Emily running from a killer, or was she deeply entangled in something far more sinister? And if she was still alive, where was she? Just when the case seemed at a standstill, a call came in from a man claiming to have seen Emily the night she disappeared. His name was Victor Malone, a trucker who had stopped at a gas station near the state border. He swore he saw a woman matching Emily's description, looking frantic, pacing outside a payphone. But what he said next sent chills down the investigators' spines. She wasn't alone. There was a man with her, tall, dark jacket, real intense. She looked scared, like she wanted to run. Then he grabbed her arm, whispered something in her ear, and they got in his car. I got a bad feeling, so I memorized the plate. The license plate led police to a rental car, one that had been checked out under a fake identity. But when forensics lifted prints from the vehicle, a match popped up, and the name behind it made the lead detective go pale. The fingerprints belonged to a man named Raymond Sloan, a former drifter with a violent history. And even more disturbing, he had been a prime suspect in the Nightshade killer case years ago, but was never convicted. Now, his prints were inside the very car Emily was last seen in. Had Emily fallen into the hands of a serial killer? Or was there something far darker at play? Police traced Raymond Sloan's last known residence, a rundown cabin deep in the woods. But when they arrived, the place had been abandoned. Inside, they found ropes, duct tape, and photographs of multiple women. Some missing, some found dead. And in the center of the table, a single photograph of Emily, with her eyes scratched out. Then, something even more chilling. Tucked under the table was a small notebook filled with handwritten notes. Some were names, others were coded messages. But one stood out, a barely legible scribble in the margins. She lied. She knew all along. She knew what and who was lying. Had Emily deceived everyone, or had she uncovered something deadly? Investigators needed answers fast, because the longer Emily remained missing, the more likely it was that they were already too late. Then, an unexpected break. Surveillance footage from a toll booth 2 states over captured a shocking image. Emily, alive, in the passenger seat of a car. But here's where it gets even stranger. The man driving wasn't Raymond Sloan. It was Daniel Reeves, the private investigator who was found murdered days before. But how? He was supposed to be dead. And more importantly, why was Emily with him? The sight of Daniel Reeves, alive, behind the wheel of that car shattered everything detectives thought they knew. The man had been found murdered, his body lying cold in the morgue. So how was he driving Emily Holloway across state lines? Was the crime scene staged? Or had someone else died in his place? Just as police scrambled to make sense of the footage, James Holloway received a call that made his heart stop. An unknown number, a distorted voice on the other end. Stop looking for her, James. You don't know what you're getting into. The line went dead before he could respond. But James knew one thing. Emily was still alive, and someone didn't want her found. Investigators rushed to re-examine Daniel Reeves' autopsy report. What they found was shocking. The body in the morgue had been badly burned, making identification difficult. But DNA results had never actually confirmed it was Reeves. Instead, dental records matched the corpse to a man named Michael Trent, a known associate of Raymond Sloan. Someone had swapped the identities. But why? As detectives dug deeper into Emily's history, another revelation surfaced. Before she met James, Emily had lived under a different name, Sarah Whitmore, and her past was riddled with suspicious incidents, including a previous employer who had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Was Emily truly a victim? Or had she been orchestrating something far more dangerous all along? Meanwhile, James couldn't sit back any longer. Against police warnings, he arranged to meet with Lauren Evans, Mark's sister, the woman who had warned that Emily wasn't who she seemed. They met in a secluded diner off the highway, and the first word out of Lauren's mouth sent a chill down James' spine. LLC's not running from a killer, James. She's running because she is one. Lauren handed him a manila folder, documents, photographs, and a single damning piece of evidence, a recorded conversation between Emily and an unknown man. The audio was grainy but clear enough. Emily's voice, no loose ends. If Daniel talks, we're all dead. James felt his stomach drop. Emily wasn't an innocent victim. She was involved in something dark, something deadly. But before he could ask more, Lauren's face turned pale. She was staring past him, out the diner window. A black SUV had pulled into the lot. The same SUV that had been seen following Emily weeks before. James barely had time to react before the doors swung open and two men stepped out. Dark suits, sunglasses, and the unmistakable bulge of concealed weapons. James barely had time to process what Lauren had told him before the two men from the black SUV stepped inside the diner. Their eyes scanned the room before locking onto him. One of them reached into his jacket. James tensed. Was this it? Had he just walked into his own execution? But instead of a weapon, the man pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the table and slid it toward James. "Walk away," he said in a low, gravelly voice. "Forget about Emily. This doesn't concern you." Then, without another word, the two men turned and walked out. Lauren's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid, and when they saw what was in the image, their blood ran cold. It was a picture of Emily, alive. She was sitting in a dimly lit room, blindfolded, her wrists bound. But the most chilling detail was in the background. A shadowy figure stood behind her, his face obscured, and scrawled across the bottom of the photo, in smeared ink, were the words, "Time's up." James knew he couldn't keep this to himself any longer. He took the photo to the police, but before local authorities could act, the FBI arrived, taking over the investigation. The case was far bigger than anyone had realized. Emily wasn't just missing. She was at the center of something massive, something the government was now involved in. Agents questioned James for hours, asking what he knew about Emily's past, her aliases, and, most disturbingly, her connection to Daniel Reeves. But when he demanded answers in return, they gave him nothing. Just a final warning. Stay out of this, or you will disappear next. Determined to uncover the truth, James met with Lauren one last time at a motel outside of town. She had uncovered something new, something big, but before she could explain, there was a loud knock on the door. Then another, and another. Lauren's eyes widened in fear. "They found me," she whispered. James grabbed her arm, ready to run, but it was too late. The door burst open, and in the chaos, James was thrown to the ground. When he looked up, Lauren was gone. James was left gasping on the floor, alone. But as he staggered to his feet, he saw something on the nightstand, a matchpick from a bar 2 states away. And scribbled inside the cover were the words, "Meet me at midnight. Bring the file." James had no idea what file the message referred to, but one thing was clear. Lauren had left him a clue, and if he wanted to find Emily and uncover the truth, he had to follow it. James drove through the night, gripping the matchpick like it was his last lifeline. The bar was in a rundown part of town, the kind of place where secrets were traded in whispers. He arrived at 11:58 p.m. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, and every shadow felt like a pair of watching eyes. Then, at exactly midnight, a figure slid into the booth across from him. The man wore a dark hoodie, his face hidden under the dim light. He didn't introduce himself. He simply placed a USB drive on the table and whispered, "If you want to live, stop looking for Emily." Then he stood up and walked away. James' pulse pounded. He plugged the USB into his laptop, and what he found inside made his stomach turn. Dozens of classified government documents, surveillance footage, and an encrypted folder labeled Project Nightfall. And at the center of it all, Emily's name. James clicked the file. It was a redacted report detailing human experiments, psychological conditioning, and intelligence operations. And buried deep in the documents was a chilling revelation. Emily Holloway, aka Sarah Whitmore, had once been a subject of a covert government program designed to create operatives who could assume false identities, manipulate high-value targets, and eliminate threats without a trace. The file suggested that Emily had gone rogue, abandoning her handlers, vanishing into civilian life. But someone, whether the government or a more dangerous force, wanted her back, and they were willing to kill to make sure she never exposed the truth. James was still processing the information when his phone buzzed. A blocked number. Against his better judgment, he answered. A breathless voice whispered on the other end. "James, I don't have much time. Don't believe anything they tell you. It's all a lie." His throat went dry. "Emily, where are you?" But before she could answer, there was a loud crash on her end of the line, and then silence. James barely had time to react before he heard footsteps outside his motel room. A quick glance out the window revealed two men approaching, different from the ones at the diner, but just as dangerous. His heart pounded. They were coming for him. With no time to think, he grabbed the USB and bolted through the back door. Tires screeched behind him as a blacked-out SUV sped into the alley, cutting off his escape. He was trapped, and the men were closing in fast. James' pulse thundered as the sub's door flew open. Two men stepped out, their faces unreadable. One reached into his jacket. James didn't wait to find out what came next. He toned and sprinted down the alley, vaulting over a dumpster as a gunshot cracked behind him. The bullet missed by inches. Ducking into a side street, he spotted a rusted-out delivery truck idling near a loading dock. With no other choice, he wrenched open the passenger door and jumped in. The driver, a grizzled man in his 50s, glanced at him but said nothing. He just floored the gas. James caught his breath as they sped away. "You knew I was coming?" he asked. The driver nodded. "Someone paid me to be here. Said you'd need a way out." James' stomach twisted. "Who?" But the driver just shook his head. Didn't give a name. Just said she was sorry. She. Was it Emily? Was she still trying to help him? Or was she pulling the strings from the shadows? Hours later, James arrived at a remote cabin deep in the woods, a safe house the driver claimed was off the grid. Inside, a single laptop sat on a wooden table, already powered on. The screen flashed with a message, "Open me." Hesitant, James clicked. A video began playing. A grainy security feed showed a sterile white lab. In the center, restrained to a chair, was a woman, Emily. Two figures in lab coats stood over her, their faces blurred. "The asset has compromised protocol. We need her reconditioned before she destabilizes further." James' blood ran cold. They weren't just holding Emily. They were trying to wipe her mind, make her forget everything, make her someone else. Before he could react, the screen flickered. Another message appeared. "Come alone, or she dies." Below it was a set of coordinates. James clenched his fists. He had no weapons, no allies, no plan. But none of that mattered. He was going. But just as he stood, the cabin door burst open. He barely had time to turn before a fist slammed into his gut, knocking the wind out of him. He hit the floor hard, gasping. A boot pressed against his chest, pinning him down. And then he saw who it was. Daniel Reeves. The man who was supposed to be dead. James stared up in shock. You were murdered. Daniel smirked. That's what they wanted you to think. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, James. But don't worry, you won't be in it much longer. James struggled against the weight of Daniel's boot pressing into his chest. You faked your death, he gasped. Why? Daniel leaned down, his smirk vanishing. Because I had to, and if you don't start listening, you're going to wish you had too. He reached into his jacket and tossed a manila folder onto the floor next to James. You think you know what's going on? You don't. Look inside. James hesitated, then flipped the folder open. Inside were documents, classified reports, surveillance photos, and one image that sent ice through his veins. It was a picture of himself, but the date on it? 3 months before he had ever met Emily. James' voice cracked. Why am I in this file? Daniel's expression hardened. Because they've been watching you for a lot longer than you think. You weren't just some guy Emily married. You were chosen. James' mind reeled. Chosen for what? Daniel exhaled sharply. To be her control. Her test subject. Project Nightfall wasn't just about Emily. It was about you too. You were never supposed to find out. That's why they are cleaning house. James' stomach twisted. If what Daniel was saying was true, then his entire life, their marriage, their love, it had all been a setup. But why? Before he could ask more, Daniel grabbed him by the collar. You want to save Emily? Then you do exactly what I say. There's a facility deep in the mountains. She's there, but she won't be for long. James' throat tightened. What do you mean? Daniel's eyes darkened. They are finishing the process. If we don't get to her in time, there won't be anything left of the Emily you knew. James didn't have time to process the betrayal, the manipulation. None of it mattered now. He had to get to Emily before they erased her completely. Daniel tossed him a burner phone and a set of car keys. Get moving. You've got 6 hours before they shut everything down. James hesitated. Why are you helping me? Daniel's jaw tightened. Because I was the first test subject. And I know what happens when they're done with you. James gripped the steering wheel as the facility's perimeter came into view, a high-security compound buried deep in the mountains, its exterior lined with armed guards and surveillance towers. Getting inside wouldn't be easy. He turned to Daniel. You said you've been here before. How do we get in? Daniel pulled a blueprint from his jacket, tracing a line with his finger. Supplied tunnels. They run beneath the east wing. They are monitored. But if we time it right, we can slip through undetected. James exhaled sharply. And if we don't? Daniel's expression darkened. Then we don't leave at all. The two men slipped through the tree line, moving under the cover of darkness. Reaching the tunnel entrance, Daniel pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. A distant explosion erupted near the facility's front gates, sending guards scrambling. That's our distraction, he muttered. Move! They rushed into the tunnel, the stale air thick with dampness. Every step echoed, every breath felt too loud. They made it halfway before a red light flickered above them. A motion detector. James froze. They know we're here. Daniel shoved him forward. Then we run. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor. Alarms blared overhead. James' pulse pounded as they sprinted past locked doors, each labeled with a code he didn't recognize. And then, he saw it. A reinforced glass cell at the end of the hall. Inside, strapped to a chair, was Emily. Her head hung forward, wires connected to her temples. Monitors displayed flashing data streams. She looked barely conscious. James ran to the control panel, frantically searching for a way to override the lock. Emily, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, dazed, unfocused. Then, a shadow moved behind him. Before James could react, a cold voice cut through the alarms. You really don't understand what she is, do you? James turned sharply. A man in a pristine lab coat stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. His presence radiated control. Emily isn't being held here. She was brought back for a reason. James clenched his fists. You're brainwashing her, turning her into one of your weapons. The doctor smirked. "No, Mr. Carter. We're restoring her. She was never yours to begin with." James stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs. "What do you mean she was never mine?" The doctor folded his hands behind his back, stepping closer to Emily's cell. "She was created for a purpose, Mr. Carter, and that purpose was never to be your wife." James shook his head. "That's a lie. Emily isn't some experiment. She's a person. She chose to be with me." The doctor sighed. "Did she?" He pressed a button on the control panel, and the monitors behind Emily flickered. Grainy video footage appeared. James' stomach lurched. It was security footage of their first meeting. But something was wrong. In the video, Emily wasn't acting surprised. She was waiting for him, tracking him, and worse, she wasn't alone. Another figure stood beside her in the footage, a man in a black suit. His voice crackled through the speakers. "Target acquired. Initiating phase 1. James' breath caught. Emily turned toward the camera and nodded. The video cut out. James felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath him. No, that's not possible." The doctor tilted his head. "Emily was never your loving wife. She was assigned to you. Every moment, every conversation, it was all part of the program. The only thing that went wrong was you." James clenched his fists. "What do you mean?" The doctor smirked. "You weren't supposed to survive this long." Before James could respond, the machines around Emily beat violently. Her body tensed, and her eyes snapped open. But when she looked at him, something was different. Her expression was blank, cold. The doctor pressed another button, and the restraints clicked open. Emily stood up slowly, rolling her shoulders. She stepped forward, her gaze locked onto James. But there was no recognition in her eyes. James swallowed hard. "Emily?" She tilted her head, studying him like a stranger. And then, in a voice that sent ice through his veins, she spoke. "Who are you?" James' hands trembled at his sides. Emily's empty stare sent a wave of dread through him. This wasn't confusion. It was something worse. She didn't know him, didn't remember him. Whatever they had done to her, it had worked. The doctor observed James' reaction with amusement. "Heartbreaking, isn't it? The woman you risked everything for, and she doesn't even know your name." James clenched his fists. "What did you do to her?" The doctor adjusted his glasses. "We freed her from you, from the false life she was forced to live. Emily has returned to what she was always meant to be." James took a slow step forward. "Emily, it's me, James." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if something in the name tugged at a distant memory. But the moment passed. Her expression remained blank, cold. Then she spoke. "James Carter, subject 0453, marked for termination." James barely had time to react before Emily lunged. He dodged, barely escaping the strike aimed at his throat. The air cracked as a fist slammed into the metal door behind him, leaving a dent. She was faster than before, stronger. Daniel grabbed James by the arm, yanking him backward. "Move! We can't fight her. She's enhanced now." James' mind raced. This was wrong. He couldn't fight Emily. He had come to save her, not hurt her. But she was coming at him again, her movements precise, ruthless, like a machine. The doctor watched with cold detachment. "She was never yours, Mr. Carter. She was ours. And now, she will finish what she was always designed to do." Daniel fired a shot at the control panel, plunging the room into flickering emergency lights. "We have to go. Now." James hesitated, his gaze locked onto Emily. For a brief second, something flickered in her eyes, a hesitation, a recognition. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. With no choice left, he turned and sprinted after Daniel, crashing through the emergency exit just as alarms blared through the facility. Behind them, Emily's voice echoed, chilling and emotionless. "You can't run forever, James." James and Daniel sprinted through the darkened corridors of the facility, alarms wailing behind them. Emily was close, too close. Every footstep echoed like a countdown to their doom. "We can't outrun her," James panted. "We have to stop this." theirs to be a way to bring her back. Daniel's face was grim. If she's fully reprogrammed, there might not be a way. But he hesitated. There's a failsafe, a neural disruptor. If we can activate it, it might wipe the conditioning and bring her memories back. James didn't hesitate. Where? Daniel pointed to a reinforced door at the end of the hallway. Control room, but it's heavily secured. A metallic clang sounded behind them. Emily had caught up. Her eyes glowed in the flickering red lights, her stance predatory. There is no escape, James. James swallowed hard. Emily, please. You know me. You know me. She took another step forward, her fingers twitching. James Carter. Subject 0453. Marked for termination. Emily lunged. James barely dodged as her fist shattered the wall where his head had been. Daniel fired at the ceiling, causing debris to fall between them. Move! He yelled, shoving James toward the control room. James skidded inside and frantically searched the consoles. What am I looking for? That! Daniel pointed to a switching case in a glass box labeled Neural Reboot. Authorized personnel only. James didn't hesitate. He smashed the glass, reaching for the switch, just as Emily burst through the door. She tackled him to the ground, pinning him with inhuman strength. James Carter. Termination. Emily. James shouted, gripping her arms. You are not a weapon. You are Emily Carter. You are my wife. She hesitated, a flicker of something behind those cold eyes. A crack in the programming. James seized the moment. The first time we met, you were wearing a blue dress. We danced under the city lights, and you said you hated the song playing, but you still danced with me. You loved peanut butter but hated jelly. You used to call me your best mistake. Her grip on his throat faltered. Tears welled in James' eyes. I love you, Emily, and I know you love me too. For a second, she was still. Then, her hand trembled. James. Daniel slammed his hand down on the switch. A high-pitched tone filled the room. Emily gasped, clutching her head. Her body convulsed, her mind caught between the programming and her real self. James grabbed her. Fight it, Emily. Come back to me. A scream tore from her lips, one of pain, of resistance, of defiance. Then, her body went limp. James caught her before she collapsed. Her breath was ragged, her pulse unsteady. Her eyes fluttered open, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she looked at him, really looked at him. James? Relief crashed over him. He pulled her into his arms. I'm here. I've got you. The facility shook as emergency sirens blared. The entire place was going into lockdown. Daniel cursed. We need to go. Now. James helped Emily to her feet, supporting her weight as they stumbled out of the control room. Guards flooded the halls, but Daniel led the way through an emergency exit. They burst into the cold night air just as explosions erupted behind them, consuming the facility in flames. They didn't stop running until they reached Daniel's car. Panting, shaking, James turned to Emily, searching her face. Are you okay? She looked at him, her expression filled with exhaustion, but also something else. A spark of recognition, of love. She reached up, cupping his cheek. I remember you. Taze pricked James' eyes. Emily. She exhaled shakily. Let's go home. And with that, they drove away, leaving behind the wreckage of a nightmare and stepping into the unknown future together.